You mentioned the significance of putting smarter people around you or maybe even more mature people around you. How'd you figure out that mattered?
Man, it took me way too long. It probably took me 2 years. I love being around smart people that challenge. I had a big ego, and still a lot of people would say still do. Early on in the business, I had a big ego and thought this thing's going to run around me, right? The business is my last name. I'm going to make the decisions. When we started adding one or two smart people, they started shining light on the mistakes I was making, the bad math I was doing when I estimated something, the emotional responses that I was making. I could give you a million different examples, and then you start to step back and realize, well, I'm not as good as I thought I was. I do not know as much as I thought, and without those people, and it's funny, it snowballs. You get a couple of those people, they attract a couple more people, and it can snowball the opposite way. You get a few bad people or a few people with egos or whatever, it's easy to start attracting more of those people. So I've learned some real hard, expensive lessons over the last 4 years. And my thesis has now changed. It used to be good human beings first. That's what I wanted. That's all I cared about. Let's get good human beings on the team. Then it started to change to let's get good human beings with some experience, right? Because we were a young staff, young team. Let's get some guys with experience. Now it's let's get good human beings who are ridiculously smart, super talented, and super passionate. The experience thing's still nice to have, but I know some young guys who are talented, smart, and a good human being, and they just go farther, But the passion, when the passion thing's gone, or you don't have that in somebody, man, it's frustrating to watch.
I can relate to being young and arrogant, and just feeling like I've got this.
Yep.
And then you fall down and your knees get bloody, or then somebody comes in and challenges you on your numbers and you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I've had these moments where those were really good for me in terms of like helping me become humble. But then there was also times I started to wonder, like, do I have what it takes? Did you ever get to a point where you're going, man, maybe this was a mistake, or maybe I don't really know what I'm doing enough to keep going forward?
Yeah. I mean, shoot, even as early as yesterday, I probably thought that in some capacity. I was going to resign and give up my position as CEO earlier this year. I
Really?
No lie. I had walked in, Thomas, our COO, Gant, our CFO, co-founder. I told those guys, I'm like, listen, we can go find someone that can run this company better than me, and we can afford to pay them. Why am I the one trying to push this rope uphill? And it's a long story. It's been a frustrating season. We've made a ton of change. We just opened a new office in Salt Lake. We've started to win contracts way bigger than what we've previously done. There's been a lot of people just working their faces off. And of course you add COVID on top of all of that. You get to a point where it only takes one or two things with a whole closet full of skeletons. It only takes one or two things for it all just to crash. And I took my 48 hours. They talked me off the ledge. But yeah, I mean, I've had it more than one time.
What gives you the courage to come on a nationally recognized podcast and say something that's that raw, that just a few months ago, you were literally thinking about resigning as CEO?
Well, it's one of the lessons I've had to learn with humility, and it's a hard lesson to learn. But I feel very confident. I'm not fit to run our company forever, and I mean, you could argue I'm not fit to run it now. You could find someone better to run it right now. I believe it. You could find a Fortune 1000 CEO that wants to go jump into a hot young mining startup and could run it better. That's just the truth. I don't know how. It's not me even being humble. I'd like to say that's me sitting here. It's just it's the truth.
But you don't seem down and out. Like, you seem humble, but you've got this confidence of like, but I'm leading. like I'm going forward.
The reason I haven't made the decision to do that and went and found somebody, I don't think there's someone better to run it 5 years from now with me learning the lessons that I'm learning now at the pace I'm learning them.
That's good.
I mean, I'll tell you, we've had a couple projects early on where we made ridiculous money. I mean, I'm talking enough money that I could just hung it up and retired. Gant and I both could have retired. And instead of doing that, we said, we're building this thing for the next 30 years, 50 years. It's going to last beyond us if we're lucky, if we do it right. So we took those profits and we've rolled them into marketing. We've rolled them into estimating more jobs and doing some jobs at a loss to go get the lessons. Like, I mean, lawsuits, and you learn so many lessons. I think in the next 5 years, the pace at which I'm learning lessons, I don't think there's going to be somebody better. That's my hope. That's my thesis.
No, I agree.
We'll see.